What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. We're a man down tonight. Declan, we miss you. Um, Especially because we're talking about a good one. We're gonna jump right in. We're talking about what Ben just called the Amazing Spider-Verse 2, but the actual scientific name is Into the
Eh,
Spider-Verse.
No, it's not.
Exactly. The scientific name. That's
The
the proper
scientific,
Latin.
Across the Spider-Verse.
yes.
Across.
Oh, I said into. I meant yes. I did mean across. I'm sorry.
I thought you were
Uh,
doing a bit.
no, I wasn't. I just I just messed up. That's
I did
it.
the same thing at work the other night. I called it Into the Spider-Verse and
Yeah.
no one caught it. And then after the conversation, I was like, wait a minute, I got that wrong. And now I can't correct myself because they already went home for the night. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to be at work for 2 weeks.
You
You
know,
know,
Whatever you want to call it, let's jump in. Ben?
I was gonna say this movie has so many Easter eggs, cameos, whatever you want to call it, like a billion different ones. But I think one that was glaring, that was missed, was a Beatles theme for Across the Universe. Um,
we might
but
be
yeah.
2 men down by the end of this episode, Max.
I really enjoyed this film. I think this is probably one of the best things you can do with a comic book story. I mean, really, really just go all in on art. And they did I mean, they included like literally every Spider-Man ever, at least in the animated. Obviously, they didn't do all of the comics, but all of the animated, TV shows, everything that could fit in there. Somehow it seemed like they fit almost everyone in. Um, and it never detracted from the story. It felt like it was just sort of it fit so naturally in it. It never overtook it. Like I feel like with the MCU, sometimes you have these moments where like Easter eggs and cameos overtake the story, and it like is too much. Whereas because the story is like so in the Spider-Verse, that's the main theme. It just fits so naturally. But it's so much fun to see everybody like the Lego Spider-Man. You get to see, live action people in the Spider-Verse, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's fantastic.
If
I
I
would
could
say
hop on
my
that.
yeah, I will give my only complaint, which is I didn't like the cliffhanger ending. I understand it because it's like a sequel and they're planning it to do a trilogy. But as a movie watcher, it just felt bad.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on both of those. The live action cameos were awesome. Starting with Donald Glover as Aaron Davis slash the Prowler. We knew he was Aaron Davis in Homecoming
Mhm.
6 years ago, but they finally put him in the Prowler costume, and we'll talk more about the character of the Prowler later on, I'm sure. But that live action and animated shouldn't have worked like that, and yet we've known since Mary Poppins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit that it can. So
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. And just to interject real quick, I found it
it's
interesting that like live action Aaron Davis seemed to work within the animated Cage. The only one that I noticed was and I don't know her name when they go to the Venom universe.
oh, Mrs. Chen.
The Yeah, Mrs. Chen. She There was something weird going on with her. She looked a bit
Well,
animated.
I think the
I
problem with
couldn't really
that one
tell.
was Aaron Davis was in the animated world of, it was Miguel O'Hara's universe, Nueva York.
Yeah.
And in that scene with Mrs. Chen, that was Spot going to that universe. So it was
Mhm.
animated in live action versus live action in animated. And I think,
Yeah.
something similar because the visuals of like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man watching Captain Stacy die, or Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man watching Uncle
Of
Ben die.
course, those were put
They
like
were
through some
like,
stuff. So
yeah, they were like windows over the shoulder where, you
yeah,
know, they're just thrown in as Easter eggs. They're not meant to be
yeah.
anything more than, hey, check out this cool thing we can do. But, I think by
It
and
was more
large,
just an interesting observation because you mentioned Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that's like the background is live action, and then you put animated stuff in. Um, I just thought it was funny to see how well they could do an actual person in an animated cage.
it, especially the Aaron Davis moment, I was surprised by how well it worked. But yeah, I want to talk about the other thing you brought up, Ben, which was the cliffhanger. This film and Beyond the Spider-Verse were initially called Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and 2. So months ago, I would have gone in guessing that this was going to be a cliffhanger.
Mm.
And then they changed the name of the third film to Beyond the Spider-Verse. And I thought, oh, they're ditching that plan. This is just going to be self-contained, like the first one was. There'll be like a credit scene setting up a sequel. And then it was the exact opposite. It was a cliffhanger and there was no credit scene. So, Max, I don't know. Do you want to talk about this cliffhanger right now?
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up because we were going to talk about it at some point. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of liked it. I really did. Because, I'm sitting in the theater, it's coming up on like 2 hours 15. I'm
Yeah,
like, how much more have we got? Like,
Is
we've
this
been
going
in
to
here for a
resolve? Is
long
this going
time,
to
right?
resolve? Is this going to resolve?
Yeah, like, how are they gonna do this? And how much longer am I gonna be here? It's like 12:30. Um,
yeah,
and then it just ended. And I remember because it was an absolutely electric environment. It was a packed theater, opening weekend, and the entire audience just let out an audible and I mean, it was just incredible. And so, you know, I get it. I understand why it might have been a little bit abrupt and uncomfortable, but I liked it.
I
I mean, I'm excited.
I don't think it was the cliffhanger itself. I'm not a big fan of cliffhangers where you build up to it. Like the way they had done it is, the teams getting together and then they assemble and then it's just title and the movie. I honestly probably would have enjoyed if they left it on a bit more of a cliffhanger, like just fully went into it, left like Miles, like not have an ending with Gwen getting everybody together.
Have the ending be Miles trapped by his alternate self?
Yeah, I would have preferred like a more
That's
true like cliffhanger
that's
rather than in the
very Infinity War of you,
middle.
Ben.
Well, if you're gonna do a cliffhanger, right? I just feel like you might as well do it all the way. Um,
I agree because I'll use Infinity War as an example, an Endgame. What they did in this film is like if you used the first 15 minutes of Endgame where Captain Marvel brings back Tony Stark and Nebula and they're like flying off to go get Thanos and the Infinity Stones, and that's where the movie ends. Infinity
yeah,
War, so much is left unresolved. The Avengers are all split up, they're across the universe. It's really, you know, rock bottom. And this one, there's that element of hope with Gwen bringing together characters from this film, with Hobie Brown and the Indian Spider-Man, whose name I'm not going to attempt. Uh,
Lord, remember.
but
Um,
the guy voiced by Karan Soni,
yeah,
who was just magnificent in that role. He was so funny, as he is in most things. Um, but yeah, the cliffhanger. I don't know, the reveal of the alternate Miles as the Prowler didn't hit me as hard as it might have hit you guys or other people in
no,
my
I
opinion.
fully
No,
expected that.
Yeah, it
it
was
didn't
a
take
little
away from how
Yeah,
intense and like have like it was a great moment, but I mean, it wasn't like a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
I
think
mean, my theater, I went to an 11 a.m. showing the Sunday morning of opening weekend. It was still packed.
Hmm.
But I mean, the energy was there, especially on, Max, my theater's reaction on the to be continued was the exact same as your theater's reaction. Um, but yeah, that moment, specifically the reveal of Jarrell Jerome's Miles Morales, and Max, I know what a big fan of his you are. Um, that was definitely a choice. It was the right choice, I think. Um, I don't know when Miles was in the go home machine, and as soon as we had learned that it takes like the DNA and sends you back to the DNA, the universe of your DNA, and we had learned that the spider that bit Miles was from Earth 42, it was just like, well, obviously he's not going back to his universe. He's going to the universe of the spider that bit him. And okay, there's no Spider-Man there. What's the next logical step? Where's the Miles of this universe? As soon as he's talking to his mom about Spider-Man, it's like, all right, where's Miles? Oh, there's Aaron Davis. And then Miles is the Prowler.
yeah.
So it was logical. I don't know if it was, as jaw drop a moment of as some people have been saying, but it was
I don't think it's
certainly,
really that George.
yeah.
You know what's funny is we were talking about
We're agreeing,
cliffhangers.
Benjamin.
No, I not disagreeing with you. It's more I don't see how you could see it being that.
People gasped
It's
at
more
that in my theater.
I don't really understand that part. But like the obvious cliffhanger uh comparison would be Empire Strikes Back, which is the reveal of Darth Vader. Um, that's a lot more shocking. I would probably
I mean, that
say,
is that is the cinematic reveal of all cinematic reveals.
yeah, I feel like it's pretty common these days. I don't want to say common, but it's kind of a trope or beginning to be a trope, evil version of yourself. Um, they did it with the Lightyear movie recently. They've done it for many things. They've done it in comics before.
Yeah, I'm
Iron
kind of
Canada
Man
glad
Morlock.
trilogy.
I'm kind of
Iron
glad
Man, yeah.
Declan's not here with you bringing up Lightyear.
Oh, and Doctor Strange, evil Doctor
Of
Strange,
course.
Mhm.
like um
They did it in the CW Flash.
oh yeah, that's right.
I mean,
That's
every
season
Evil
3, I think.
Flash.
Yeah,
there's
Savitar.
like
Yeah,
every
he's
or
still
I
a
would
virgin,
say
so he's angry and evil.
half of all solo movies in the MCU are fighting someone with you're fighting someone with the same powers as you.
Well, no, I mean I will say like Iron Man, you brought up Iron Man. That's like people who were supposed to be an evil version of Tony Stark. But what I'm saying is like it's literally a trope to just fight an evil version of yourself, like an alternate
Okay.
version.
Okay.
Literally yourself, just evil version.
Mhm.
Um, that's kind of been a thing that comics have done recently. That's not a bad thing. It's just something that like I expect
Do we
more
think
often than not.
we'll see that with the two Ezra Miller flashes in The Flash later this month?
Oh man,
Are they going to fight each other?
probably
Maybe.
not.
Uh,
Probably not. But that's based on my like I've read Flashpoint, so I sort of know the story. I would expect them to be somewhat similar. They're not probably not follow it to a T, but that would not be
I don't know.
what I would
I'm so
expect.
excited to see Keaton again. Like imagine saying in, you know, 1989 when we got Batman with Keaton and Jack Nicholson and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade that in 2023 two of the biggest summer movies would have Michael Keaton and as Batman and Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones.
And Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross.
That's gonna be Max, you and I were talking about Captain America Brave New World earlier, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be something. I don't think he had the mustache, and isn't the mustache like Thunderbolt Ross's whole thing?
Yeah,
Right.
kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
don't
was
know.
Maybe they
We'll
do
see what
like a
happens.
fake
I was
one.
watching Incredible Hulk earlier, and I was like, how is Harrison Ford gonna do this without the mustache? It's kind of all I'm looking at.
Yeah.
You really
Anyways,
shouldn't, but
let's
yeah,
we
that's
should
over.
we should get back to the task at hand,
Yes,
gentlemen.
yes, yes, yes,
Please
yes.
and
Yeah.
thank you. Before we move on to some other interesting things, and there is a lot, I do want to talk briefly and get both your thoughts on the 20-minute cold open. Um,
Oh
and
yeah,
what
it's
and if,
interesting.
whether you liked it, dislikes, what worked, what didn't. George, I know you and I have talked a little bit about this, but not really in depth. So I want to hear from you.
Sure. Again, I'll say it was definitely a choice, but it was the right one. I think, you know, the first film was very much Miles's story, and this film is too, to an extent, but it's also very much Gwen's story. Obviously the cold open focuses on her and how she joined the Spider Society. But there are moments throughout where she's sort of questioning her place in the universe. First and foremost, at the end of the cold open, when she decides to leave her universe to go hang out with Jessica Drew and Miguel O'Hara, and then deciding to go see Miles, deciding to reveal herself to her father in the cold open. Um, the scene that she has towards the end of the second act with her father once again in her universe after she gets kicked out of the Spider Society, and the whole Hobie left this makeshift multiverse watch with him. But it's very much a lot of the story focuses on Gwen's journey, and I think we'll see more of that as she sort of steps up to be a leader of this new multiversal Spider Squad in Beyond the Spider Verse. But again, the cold open, we have to be introduced to Miguel O'Hara somehow, and to an extent Jessica Drew. Um, Loved seeing Yorma Tacone as this Renaissance era vulture. I thought the artistry of that cold open was
Uh,
amazing.
That
it
was
was pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Uh, the we could talk for hours about the animation of
Yeah, I
this.
mean the animation's fantastic. I don't think talking about it will do it justice. It's just
Yeah,
something you gotta experience. They put
Yeah.
so much passion and work into it.
and I'll say like the first film, this one needs to be experienced on the big screen. It is such a
Absolutely.
spectacle, more than most, if not all, other animated movies. And that tone is set right off the bat with Gwen's drum solo and her sort of identity crisis, and then the battle at the is that the Guggenheim?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
be honest though, such a drummer move. Such a drummer. Like just not paying attention to anything. Actually, that's not true because the drummers are normally pretty good until you get to the drum solo. And the drummers lose themselves because they don't get drum solos. Um, yeah, very, very accurate portrayal of a drummer. And they storm off because they're angry.
So, content announcement, we will now be distributing Ben's angry rants once a week where he talks about drum solos and
I just
anything
talk
else
about
that
different
makes him
band
angry.
members, all
Um,
the ways that they suck, except for guitar players.
Stay tuned next
Um,
week for when he goes off about Anthony Ramos and Optimus Prime having dueling drum solos in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
episode 2.
Battle of
It'll be
the
exciting.
Optimus Primes.
Uh,
Ben, what are your thoughts on the cold open?
yeah.
I kind of talked myself.
Um, so I honestly enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was, yeah. I mean, I could easily see you having the opinion of it was a slightly too long because it was about like 20 minutes or something,
I
right?
did
Yeah.
check my phone when the first like title card after the cold open went up, and I was like, damn.
It is a bit weird, but I think it works fine. Like when you watch the whole movie, it works. And especially because like so it's a cliffhanger for Miles and for the movie as a whole, because it's the second of three movies. But for Gwen, I feel like her story is sort of in this movie. Like obviously she was in the first one, but they give her pretty much a character arc for this one. It's like, they give the cold open with the lizard, her failure to save her best friend and her issues with her father and stuff and opening it up. And then she sort of fixes that at the end, her father like retires, so she doesn't have to worry about him. So it's sort of like she's what Miles wants to do, the
Stopping the canon event.
predecessor, yeah. But like also, how she wants to open up to her father, how he wants to open up to his father. But she does it in this movie. She has it reveals like the problem in the beginning and solves it in the end. And then Miles is sort of having the same thing over the three movies. So I think it made sense to put a bit of an emphasis on her, since she's gonna be sort of, I don't want to say a foil, because normally a foil's not quite the same character, but like the foreshadow what Miles wants for his future, at least, open up to his dad, make sure his dad doesn't die, tell him the truth, fix all that stuff in his mind. So I enjoyed it in the perspective of that.
What about you, Max?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it was very long and like you can feel it being long, but it also felt so incorporated with the rest of the story that I think it didn't really matter. And it was nice to get a little bit more background on Gwen, not
Wanda.
Glenn. And you know, they got to showcase some really cool artistic styles in that too. A couple of different times, like especially when her and her father's sort of their color palettes changed and everything and sort of meshed together. Like that was really cool and continued to do so throughout the movie. Like that was something I noticed. It was beautiful. Um yeah, okay. So we're gonna switch gears and I think let's talk about the stakes. Let's talk about what Miles is up against in this movie, and sort of what the future looks like in Beyond the Spider-Verse, which comes out next year.
Uh, a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because he's got to deal with one, the pressure, first and foremost in the beginning of the film, the pressure put on him by his parents, on top of the pressure of leading this double life as Miles Morales and Spider-Man, which is a cross all Spider-Men must bear, Spider people must bear.
Spider people. Actually, not even spider people. There's
Spider beings.
spider beings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
spider beings.
can't forget Spider Ham.
I was so excited to see Spider Ham in that team up at the end of the movie.
You
Yes,
know
Malik
what?
is coming back. Nick Cage is coming back.
Yeah,
Getting the gang back together. But yeah, then you got the Spot, who is, you know, turned from a bagel thrown away in the first movie to the biggest threat to the multiverse we've seen since Ultron Vision in What If.
yeah.
And then you've got
it's a problem.
and then you've got Miguel O'Hara and Jessica Drew and the entire Spider Society chasing Miles across the multiverse. And then you've got alternate Miles and Aaron Davis trapping him in Earth 42. And then you got the pressure of the canon event trying to stop his father from dying as a police captain. So the stakes, while the stakes of the first film were pretty high with Kingpin and his super collider and dreams of bringing his wife and child from another universe to Miles and Wilson Fisk's universe, the stakes are astronomically higher in this film. And the emotional weight played up in this film so well that we see how the situation and the stakes are impacting these characters more than just Miles. They're impacting Gwen, and they're impacting Miles's parents, and they're impacting Miguel, who is a fascinating character, given his brief explanation of his backstory.
Miguel's kind of like Doctor Strange in Multiverse. One of like probably a combination of a few variants, but you bring up Kingpin and he wants to bring his wife back. Miguel wants to he like lives in that alternate reality where he's dead, but his family is alive. And you get like the Scarlet Witch, who's pretty much just searching for a reality to do that. I find it funny that, even though this is in association with Marvel, and obviously they weren't doing the Spider-Verse, it sort of follows the MCU's like big overall plot right now. So
Sure.
I feel like the stakes are very similar to a lot of the MCU movies we've watched, especially like Multiverse. Reality is just being destroyed. Everything is just gonna blow up.
I'm surprised no one said the word incursion.
Yeah, I was ready for that. But yeah, it does feel very similar, at least to me, that like the stakes are pretty much as big as you can get. And I did find it funny that the Spot was such a ridiculous character for how destructive he is. And kind of, like
it was Jason
funny
Schwartzman.
A funny and really
could not
kind of
take him seriously
sad.
hearing that voice. I'm sorry.
It was such a sad character. Like he was probably the most interesting character. I mean, I could you even imagine that? Like, what would you do if you just that? I mean, what do you do? Like,
Second Marvel superhero movie this year where a character is obsessed with their holes.
Oh my God. Well, he wasn't really obsessed with them. It was just
Ben,
just
please
had
go
them.
with it.
All right, okay. Yes.
Sure,
Yeah.
George.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, stakes. When it comes to great stakes, they've just raised the stakes.
Yeah.
Trump stakes.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Isn't that the slogan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, when it comes to great stakes, I've just raised the stakes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
George, did you have any thoughts on Miguel O'Hara? I know it sounded like you were interested. Do you have any like expanded thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go off on Miguel for a second.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac is slowly taking on the mantle of king of nerd culture from Andy Serkis. I mean, think about it.
King of nerd
Ben,
culture.
Ben, think about it. Ben, think about it. Think about it. Star Wars, Marvel, now Spider-Man in Across the Spider-Verse. He's in Dune.
Well, what do you mean by king? Oh, you mean like just that he's in a bunch of stuff?
He's
I
in
was about to
everything.
say, king of nerd culture is probably Henry Cavill, because he is the king of the nerds, and he's in lots of that stuff. But
yeah,
go
Oscar
on.
Isaac, Miguel is described as the one Spider-Man without a sense of humor. And I think what we know about Miguel, you brought up his backstory and how he went to this alternate universe to replace the version of him that died. We know that he's like a ninja vampire, I think he's described as at one point.
Yep.
See the claws and fangs maybe, but like
he definitely got some like wolfy stuff in there.
We don't really know too much about Miguel. And I think, the vocal performance by Oscar Isaac is super like nuanced and profound, where he elevates this character um, through the words on the page. But again, he was teased at the end of the first movie, with that pointing gag in the post-credit scene.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
We've known that he was going to be like the villain of this film, or not villain, but antagonist of this film. And now, where we find him going into Beyond the Spider-Verse, because he maintains throughout this film that he is a good guy. But the fact that he differs with Miles on the approach to handling canon events and the spot and everything, Miguel is kind of in a moral gray area. And
He's like Illuminati Spider-Man.
basically, I think, there's a lot of potential for him to go in so many different directions in the sequel that, I would want to see, like, give me Oscar Isaac in a live action Miguel O'Hara Spider-Man 2099 movie.
Could be
Like,
fun.
I would love to see more of this character, and I'm so excited to see more of him in Beyond the Spider-Verse. So yeah, Miguel, great, great character.
Yeah, I enjoy
And
that. The evil part of him is that he doesn't have humor. That's what lets him. I mean, because that is an important part of the Spider-Man. Like in every single comic, in every single iteration, whether it's Peter Parker, Miles Morales, whatever, is that they go through so much damn tragedy. If they don't have humor to like mask it, they're gonna go evil, they're gonna go insane. Like no one should have to go through all that stuff.
And you could just imagine Oscar Isaac and Jake Johnson in the recording booth doing Peter B and Miguel's dialogue off each other. And I wonder how many takes that took, because Jake Johnson is absolutely ridiculous. He has so much fun as Peter B.
Yeah.
And Miguel, and
And
Oscar trying to be
yeah, he
Miguel.
really
That,
he
that
really
must be
hits it.
so much fun.
I mean, that is quintessential Peter Parker. Um, and yeah, I think it is very interesting to like see his character, because I do feel like it's very similar to like Multiverse of Madness, somewhere in between like some of the Doctor Stranges. There's the one that wanted his Christine, and yeah, the Doctor Strange that like destroyed a universe trying to save another universe. You really get those sorts of like binary views from Spider-Man 2099. So yeah, I agree. I think his character was great, and he is a great in between, where he's not really like evil per se. He's just got a very black and white sort of viewpoint, which doesn't really apply to him. So yeah, I think it is very interesting, and especially compared to the Spot, who's like this crazy powerful, can destroy the universe, but is just kind of a sad and comedic character. But it's really not his fault. It's kind of screwed. So yeah, I think the characters really work well with all the dimensions to them. Nobody's just a straight like bad or good guy. Everybody feels like an actual character with depth to them. Which is probably something missing from many comic book movies.
Yeah.
Final question from me, unless you guys wanted to talk about anything else. Predictions for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Any fun ones?
I am guessing that Spider-Man 2099 will get his redemption or some piece like that. I wouldn't imagine him being the main bad guy in the last one.
No, I think
Um,
that'll probably be either alternate Miles as the Prowler, or the Spot.
Yeah, I would guess like maybe the Spot, maybe something just sort of
I don't
completely
think they would.
different. Maybe not a character, but he has to stop literally the end of the universe or something.
I
Well, I mean,
I
it's also the struggle between balance. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was
I
just
think
gonna
I'm in a
say.
bit of a lag.
I was just gonna say that I don't think they would introduce a new threat in the third film. Like
Yeah, no, definitely not.
a lot of sequels. I'll use the Pirates of the Caribbean first three movies as an example. The second movie serves as the bridge to the third movie. You know, the second and third films, especially, in the Pirates movies and now here in the Spider-Verse movies, second, two and three are going to be one story. It's like, Infinity War and Endgame were originally Infinity War parts one and two. That's one Avengers story.
Mhm.
So I really think that every major player that we're going to see in uh, Beyond the Spider-Verse has already been introduced. My one super crazy theory for Beyond the Spider-Verse, Max, when Gwen gets the makeshift multiverse watch that Hobie left with her father, I could have sworn it flashed to 616. We saw Toby in the background. We saw Andrew in the background. I'm going to say Tom Holland is in Beyond the Spider-Verse.
When you say that, you mean like as a cameo?
As a cameo, sure.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
give you that. I'd expect that.
Yeah, that was
we're not
actually
going to
I mean,
very.
see
they,
we're not going to see Eddie Brock as Venom. We're not going to see, you
No.
know,
hey man, maybe we do. We already saw Mrs. Chen. Like,
that was,
come
you
on.
know,
They're not gonna put Venom in, but they're gonna put it in the convenience store. Like,
when they did the Mrs. Chen scene, I half expected them to like connect it all the way because everyone's got the theory that the Venom with Tom Hardy is in the same universe as Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man.
yeah, people said that. I don't buy
I half
that. That doesn't
expected
make
Andrew
much
Garfield to
sense,
walk into
though.
Mrs. Chen's store. I know it's San Francisco and New York, and they're completely different places.
Yeah,
I thought that would have been funny. We're not going to see Morbius in, you know, in Beyond the Spider-Verse. They mentioned Craven. We're getting the Craven the Hunter movie this fall with Aaron Taylor Johnson. We're not going to see Craven. We're not going to
it's
see
probably
Madame
gonna be
Web.
bad, but we'll see what happens.
I would not be surprised by a Tom Holland appearance in Beyond the Spider-Verse. That's probably my biggest, you know, long shot prediction.
No, I actually expect that because they announced Spider-Man 4, so or at least there are rumors of them announcing it. I imagine it would come out within a few
I
years.
would say probably like 2025, maybe somewhere between Kang Dynasty and
Yeah.
Secret Wars.
So like if it's 2025, Beyond the Spider-Verse is 1 year from now. You put him in there, tease like, oh hey guys, remember this kid? He's still Spider-Man. Uh Also, how crazy is it that there's gonna be a Spider-Man 4 and they're gonna go up to 6? Doesn't that sound weird? Spider-Man 6? Like, doesn't that sound
Yeah,
unnatural?
because they've never made it that
I
far.
know, it just doesn't work in my head. But
No,
yeah, no,
they'll reboot it
I
with
give
like a
it to you.
12-year-old because every time they've done Spider-Man, he's gotten younger.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's true.
oh, with the actors, yeah, I guess that's
I
true.
mean, we are getting the
All of
animated
the characters,
Disney
all of the main
Plus.
characters have gotten younger.
I think
They're getting
Andrew Garfield was probably around the same age as Tom Holland. He
That
wasn't that
actually might be
old.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
that
know.
actually he may have had a
Um,
couple years, but it was pretty close.
we're getting Spider-Man freshman year on Disney Plus, the animated series.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Is that 2024?
I think that's next year. Yeah,
Okay.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's before Daredevil Born Again, and I think
I mean, let's
they're
be
gonna
honest,
try
this
to
is all that
connect.
Sony's got. So they're gonna ride the Spider-Man train.
Definitely. But yeah, I think you know there's going to be in Beyond the Spider-Verse, there's going to be Miles facing off against his own reflection in the Prowler.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, Gwen's team probably fighting Miguel's team
Mhm.
in Miles's home universe. I'm going to guess that Miles's father dies. I'm going to guess that he can't stop the canon event, and
I would guess that.
Miguel's going to try to talk him through it, and then Peter B's going to try to talk him through it, and then he's going to have to deal with the Spot and save the multiverse. Um, but then again, Gwen saw a way that canon events can be stopped. So stopped safely, rather, because we saw what happened in Moonbatten, where the multiversal
Well,
cracks
maybe
started to show up.
maybe Spider-Ham sacrifices his life and saves
You shut your damn mouth.
Miles' father.
Uh,
And then he goes up to him and says, "That'll do, pig. That'll do."
so mine, George, was actually very similar to yours, but I'm gonna change it now that you said yours. And um, this is again crazy out there theory, but I think Peter B. Parker might die. Um, maybe not, but again, crazy theories. Why not? I think that might be a possibility that he dies. If we were talking about prediction, if Beyond the Spider-Verse was just the second movie, they only did two movies instead of a trilogy, then I think it'd be much more likely after Into the Spider-Verse than Across the Spider-Verse. But you know, I can see it happening, even though he's a happy family. But I think either way, Miles is going to have some sort of tragedy to deal with in the third film.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that they kill his dad over
Oh yeah, 100%.
Peter B. Parker.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be kind of
But
it'd be kind of tough. He's just got this daughter, like he finally, recovered in the first film. He's got his daughter and kill him in the third one.
the thing is,
shitty.
Miles, I almost said Peter. Miles had tragedy in the first film when Uncle Aaron died.
Yeah.
So that, could be considered his Uncle Ben type of canon
Well,
event.
they do that in the canon event, like gallery or whatever, showing all those canon events. That him dying is in there. So
Right. So, I mean, the whole concept of canon events being expressed so blatantly was really meta at first. It's like, oh, we're talking about things that are canon. Like this sounds like Twitter discourse. Like, no, that's not canon to the Spider-Man story. But, you know, as the film went on, it made sense for the story to be talking about them like that. Because, all of these different spider beings, Ben, are experiencing the same story in different ways.
Mhm.
And I love that this movie and No Way Home have made all of Sony's mistakes with the end of the Raimi trilogy, the end of the Andrew Garfield era better. They're explaining away the differences in story. They're explaining that there's a multiverse, and so it makes sense that there would be two versions of Peter Parker.
I think it's also appreciating, like, I would say some of the movies, like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, was not great, but I think most people appreciate the actors and like the different
Sure.
versions of them. So it's nice to see them brought back in a nice way without having to like compromise the story or
Yeah,
be in there too much.
this partnership between Marvel and Sony has been the best thing for the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies that we could have hoped for since those movies, sort of fell to the wayside next to the MCU.
Mhm.
It's a celebration of the history of Spider-Man on screen.
Yeah.
And Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be fucking insane.
It should be.
That's a
Given
good
what they've
prediction,
done in the
George.
first
Good
two,
job.
yeah. I'd say
Yeah.
it's probably accurate.
Just as long as they shoot for a well-paced story and not trying to stretch to be an epic or keep it rewatchable at an hour 40. Like, you need the story to be well-paced. You
I
can't
think
rush through it. We can't Rise of Skywalker this thing.
if there's one thing that I gotta ask though, and I hope that they put it in, to my knowledge, there's been no Spider-Man movie with Big Wheel in it. And I think it's time that they change that. All right, put Big Wheel in Beyond the Spider-Verse. He deserves to be in there. He's an iconic villain. Everybody knows Big Wheel. And
I
that's
will
all I
allow a
want.
cameo and no more.
Big Wheel is the best. I don't know what to tell you guys.
All right. At Sony and at Marvel, make it
Put
happen.
Make
in
it
Big
happen.
Wheel.
Start the campaign.
Yeah, George, let's get a hashtag going.
Let's get a
Let's do
hashtag
it.
going for the movie that is coming out in 8 months, 9 months.
They could put it in.
They can just redo the film. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
If you think that the hundreds of thousands of people who have given this movie a 4, 4.5, or 5 star on Letterboxd are waiting another second beyond the amount of time they already have to for this next movie, you are insane. Like 300.
Yeah, but it could be a
already
5-star movie if they
chomping
put
at the
Big Wheel
bit.
in.
That's a good
5-star
point. That's a
movie
good point, Ben.
guaranteed.
It could be 5 stars with Big Wheel. All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us tonight. We were the Unqualified Film Bros.
We were.
We'll come back at you next week. All right. Good night.
All right.
All right, good night.